Hi Stampers, this is Kim with Great Inspirations. Thanks for stopping by today. Now, for those of us who have been stamping and card making for a long time, we have a lot of techniques in our arsenal. But sometimes I forget to pull out some of those techniques and I just keep using the same ones over and over and over again. So today I thought I would talk about a technique that I haven't used in a long time, but it's really fun. It's not difficult. Sometimes it takes just a little bit more time than a quick and easy card, but it's still easy and relatively quick to achieve. And that technique is called Emboss Resist. And that is what I've done on each of these backgrounds. I've simply stamped images with Versamark or embossing ink and then covered those images with white embossing powder. You can also use clear, and heat set that and added some color with some blending brushes. Now all these cards were made with a really cute stamp set called It's a Science. And this can be found in the current Stampin' Up! Annual catalog and also in the online store. It has some really cute images as well as some cute sentiments. You're like a proton, always positive. It's your birthday, you can overreact. Let's celebrate. You plus me equals chemistry, and you matter. Now this stamp, this is just one stamp here, these four little beakers. Then we have the microscope, the atom, and this little chemical structure here, some bubbles, and the clipboard. So this, as I said, is the stamp set I used to create these cards, and I just thought that these images here just cried out for this technique. As I said, it's the Emboss Resist technique. So let's talk a little bit about how to do it. First of all, you will need some cardstock and then whatever image you want to stamp. And you will need supplies to emboss. And you, of course, you heard me talk about the Versamark, which is kind of a sticky ink. It's clear. And then I find an embossing buddy or some kind of anti-static tool to rub over the cardstock will really help to make sure that the embossing powder clings only where you want it to cling. And now you also need some embossing powder. Like I said, you can use the clear or you can use white. It's up to you. I tend to have better luck with the white because I have such a hard time seeing where the clear is when I stamp it on. And also I have a hard time when I'm heat setting to see if the clear is set. But you can use either. This is of course what it looks like when you use, well here, let me show you with this one. This is what it looks like when you use the white. And then on this piece I use clear. So as you can see, there's not a lot of difference. The white, the images pop out just a little bit more, but this is also really great. So this little tray, the brush, this tweezers, and this embossing buddy are part of Stampin' Up's Embossing Additions Toolkit. And I really like it, but it's sort of funny. I've had trays like this in the past, and I never really used them. I just would use a piece of paper, just a piece of printer paper, that I would fold in half, lay my image down I want to emboss, shake the embossing powder, and then just put it back in the jar. But I do like these tweezers. They really help. They're heat resistant, and you can just put your cardstock on there and heat emboss away and your fingers aren't going to get burned. So I do like these. I used to use a clothespin, but these I really do like. And this brush is very handy to wipe off embossing powder where you do not want it to be. So there is that kit from Stampin' Up, and that is in the current catalog and also available in the online store. But we'll just pretend that we have stamped our images and we have heat set them. And that's what I've done here. And I know you're probably not going to be able to see very well, but they're the little atoms. And I used it with white, the white embossing powder. And now we're going to add some color. And I'll just show you how quick. The embossing is what takes the longest amount of time. We're going to use some Daffodil Delight and some Azure Afternoon and Lemon Lime Twist inks. We'll start with the lightest one first. Some blending brushes. Now you can use sponges or sponge daubers, or you can use brayers if you want. I've done that before. And we're just going to add a little bit of the ink. And you can do this in any pattern you want, if you want to go vertical or horizontal, or just kind of go, kind of abstract, go wherever you want. That's what I usually tend to do. So there's some yellow. Now let's get a little bit of the Azure Afternoon. It's a really nice blue. It's one of the new core colors. And we'll just put some of that on there. And then we'll put it, let's see, we want to have some green in here. So we'll just put this right in here. Honestly, the most difficult part of this for me was deciding which colors to use. But that's fun. It's fun to kind of, oh, what colors would look best? Now we'll use some of the Lemon Lime Twist. And just cover our whole card stock there. I think we need a little more of the Daffodil Delight right here. Here we go. And maybe just a little bit more of the Azure Afternoon. And there you go. And that didn't take very long to create it all. And then all you have to do is just put whatever images you would like to put on your card. So we'll put all this away so I don't get ink everywhere. I see I already have some of the Lemon Lime Twist on me. Not a surprise. Okay. Now, as I said, you can, decorate this any way you care. I chose on this one to just stamp some of the atoms, color them in, and then fussy cut them. This set does not have dies, so it does require fussy cutting if you want to cut something out. But they're not too bad. It's really, fairly easy shapes. But on this one, the beakers, those were fun to make. I embossed them on vellum. And I will show you what I did. Here is one. Let me get my craft sheet out here. Here is one that's already embossed. And I want to color that in. I want it to have some color. Now, I have found what we know that with vellum, you can see the adhesive if you're not careful. You want to try to hide it. Well, for this one and this one, the dimensionals are not that noticeable. On this lighter color, this is Fresh Freesia, they're a little more noticeable. But I decided that's okay. It's in a beaker. That could be anything under the sun. And not only that, the shape of the dimensionals matched these little shapes in our little chemical drawings here. So I was okay with that. But on this one, I tried a little better to hide them. And I don't know, the lemon lime twist, kind of okay. But the Azure Afternoon worked really well. You cannot see the dimensionals. So that's what we will work on. I'll show you how I did it. With vellum, you can flip it over and it's good to color it on the back. That's what I found works best for me. And I'm going to use the Azure Afternoon Dark Stampin' Blend. It's alcohol marker. If I can get it open. There we go. And I'm just going to color this in. And try not to get my head in your way. Let's see there. Okay. There we go. We're just going to flip that over and give it a chance to dry. Then I'm going to take another piece of vellum. That's about the same size. It doesn't have to be exact. And some multi-purpose glue. I'm going to just put a blob right here. And then I'm going to take one of these little paper binders and a piece of sponge and just pounce. And then I'm going to pounce on the vellum. Then we'll take our beaker and just adhere these together. And then I'm going to turn it over again. Just kind of really press that down good. And I'm going to use the Stampin' Blend marker again and color this in. And this beaker is full to the top. Some of them I didn't make so full, but this one's full to the top. Okay. So there that is. We'll give it just a second to dry. And actually, what I've done, I've just, many times I just press it over and any extra blobs of the alcohol ink just go right on the paper. And now I'm just going to fussy cut it. It's really easy when you've embossed because it kind of gives you a guide and a nice little, you know, it's raised ever so slightly from the vellum, so it kind of keeps you from cutting where you don't want to cut. But I am just cutting along the edge of that vellum, or I'm sorry, of the embossed area, the embossing powder. And there we go. There's our little beaker. And as you can see, the color is dark enough that when you put your Stampin' Dimensionals on it, and then place it on the card, it will not, they won't show through. So you just have to experiment and find the colors, usually the darker colors, that work best to hide your dimensionals for a card like this. Now, as you see on the bottom here and here, they're raised a bit because I wanted it to look like a little lab table. So all I did was I cut 4 strips of basic black cardstock that are 1/2 inch wide. And this one, of course, this is 3 3/4 by 5, this piece. So I cut this 1/2 inch by 5 inches, cut 4 of them, and just simply glued them one on top of the other. And this one, the same thing, only they are 3 3/4 inches wide by 1/2 inch. So that's how I did that. And I showed you how I did the background. I really like that. Emboss Resist background. Showed you the table, and I showed you how I did the little beakers and kind of experimented with that. And here's 3 fun cards I think would be fun to send to kids or adults alike. And all 3 of those cards were, again, made using the It's a Science stamp set. Of course, you can use any stamp set you want with this technique. And like I said, you can also use, as opposed to white embossing powder, you can use the clear embossing powder and get a very similar result. Now, all the instructions for these cards and the measurements and the supplies will be in my corresponding blog post, and a link to that blog post will be in the description of this video. Thank you for joining me today, and until next time, stamp happy!